Roll for Crit is made possible thanks to the support of viewers like you and our patrons on our Patreon page.
You can become a patron for just $1 a month at patreon.com/rollforcrit. Hello! Hello out there in YouTube land. Welcome to Roll for Crit. This is our Meeple Gallery for the month of September/August/July.
Time has lost all meaning.
It really has. It really has. You're joining us as we go through our viewer comments section from the last couple of months. It's been a while since we've done one of these, and we are live. And I see Hoser40K is in the chat. He made it, so we appreciate that. Always on the lookout for us to make sure our audio and video is good. Mainly the thing that I can adjust right now that will be helpful is if you let me know if either one of us is louder or quieter than the other at any point in time. We'll try to adjust that for you. But otherwise, we're here to talk about a whole bunch of topics about board games, some very big ones, some that feel like they happened years and years ago because it's been so long since we forgot what any of these things are. Hoser said we're looking good and sounding good. I don't know about looking good, but I assume he means relative to the quality of the stream.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
There's only so much you can do with this.
Oh, boy. Come on, let's not be self-deprecating. I'm Jonathan, by the way.
And my name is Will.
And this is Roll for Crit. Let's get into it. All right. Starting off with some stuff from just recently. We had a news roundup. We discussed the fact that renowned game designer Eric Lang is no longer going to be at a permanent position with Come On. He's going back to being a freelance guy. And we were talking about what that might mean for him and the future of his games and such. So we got some comments about that. By the way, I'm looking off screen because that's where I'm reading the comments. I hope that doesn't alarm everybody. Falcon Ash K. Oh, and also if you want to ask us questions on these topics or any other topics, feel free to post them in the chat, and we'll get to them as we read these other comments.
Yes, if I look off screen, that means I'm probably looking at the chat to see if anything's come up.
There you go. And if anyone else is looking off screen, I don't know who you're looking at. That's strange. Falcon Ash K said, is it possible for Eric Lang to do some more Dice Masters with his other game designs? He's one of my favorite designers and persons. I look forward to see what he will do next. Yeah, Dice Masters. Is that still going? Is that still running?
No, I thought it ended.
Did it end?
I could be wrong, but I know the Star Wars Destiny did.
Right. I don't remember hearing anything about Dice Masters ending. Maybe it just fizzled out, but I don't know. Maybe I just forgot there's so many things going on.
My guess is if it's going on, he's
not directly involved in it, yeah, but maybe.
But what would be more likely, especially if it isn't going anymore, he might do more like a Quarriors thing. You know, it's the same idea, but not packs. Like he'll just do like a game.
Incorporate it somehow into a different design idea, maybe.
Yeah.
Could be. Thomas Romanelli, contrary to kind of what you were saying in our video, said, I'm reasonably certain. That's what he says. There's far more to the background motivations behind Mr. Lang's departure from Come On, but I congratulate him for his achievements while there and look forward to his future accomplishments in furthering game design and seeking advocacy within the industry. So he thinks there's something else going on behind the scenes. I don't know what his source is on this, but he seems to have a hunch that there's maybe something more sinister at work that we don't know about as to why Eric Lang chose to leave.
Look, I was not in the room where it happened, but like, I think the simplest thing is usually more common. And also, I don't think Eric Lang is the kind of person who would either not say if something bad was happening and he wasn't happy about, nor do I think he's fearful because his name is big enough that even if he was fired for some reason, he's not gonna get blackmarked.
Oh, I mean, that's true. I wasn't thinking fired. I was thinking more along the lines of maybe he feels like, I don't know, maybe that's like a sinking ship sort of scenario.
Well, no, it could be. I was just trying to think of the different reasons why there would be bad blood of some sort. And I just feel like we would have heard of something if there was.
It's possible. Who knows? Yeah, I don't know. Oops, sorry.
I mean, he could have still, like you said, jumped ship, but I think that was because his contract ended up. And he's just like, I don't think it was an emergency kind of thing. He's
Hoser, yeah, sorry.
No, I mean, that was pretty much it.
Hoser confirms in the chat, Dice Masters still going. He says they just had a new release. So yeah, we just don't keep up with it, but yeah,
still
going. Yeah.
I flickered there. I saw on my screen.
Yes.
Can you still see me?
Yeah, that's why I said.
Okay.
Sorry. Don't worry. I'm on top of it. Don't watch yourself in the past. It's just going to confuse everybody.
Well, it's the corner of my eye. So when a bright red appeared, I was like, what happened?
It could just be a stigmatism or something. Elias Hartmark said Eric Lang seemed really disinterested in some of the recent Come On games. For example, Bloodborne. So I'm glad he's not forced to work for Come On any longer. Just speculation though. I don't know. That's something we noticed. Eric Lang, if you're watching, chime in. Let us know in the chat what you think.
We'd love to interview.
Ryan McLeod. Let's not sound too desperate. Ryan McLeod said, "Can't help but feel that Eric Lang's name just became a selling point in most instances, the same way Spielberg is used in films now. Don't get me wrong, there's obviously the games that are his, like Ankh, but then you get things like Trudvang Legends, which I think it's clear to most was more of a supervisory effort. If he's doing his own thing now, then that's nothing but a positive." Yeah, that's interesting. I feel like we don't see that a lot. This director presents a game, right? Yeah, but yeah, he's maybe one of the few designers who's his name big enough that could work for.
I will say, going to I think some people have been mentioning before, he does have a bit more freedom because Come On Games seems to be very miniature heavy right now. Like, I know they still every now and then produce something, but it's I feel like that's what their focus is. So if he really wants to focus outside of miniatures, this is his best bet.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I'm like, yeah, I would like him to do other stuff that's different, stuff like XCOM or Dice Masters or things that I don't think Come On would ever make.
If you want to do miniatures, I'm fine with that. I want everyone to be happy, and that's all I care about. So far, that seems to be the case.
I'm saying personally, I want him to not do miniatures. Like, I think he has better games in him that are more in genres I enjoy. So that's what I would like. Mepper said a while ago, Ignacy Chevacek mentioned that Eric Lang had been working with Portal Games on a game a little before he took the Come On job. Have you heard anything about this? I have not heard anything about this. So I'm just bringing it up to put it out there. But I didn't hear anything about it. I'll send Ignacy a tweet for you.
Yeah.
And ask. Let's see. We're going to jump around to all kinds of different subjects here. Seven Wonders has a new edition coming out, along with new editions of its existing expansions. And Gary S. had some more info that I hadn't heard about, but apparently they talked a little bit more about this stuff on one of the virtual gaming con streams that BGG and Dice Tower put together. Said it was announced that Leaders in Cities will include the cards from the anniversary packs, as well as beginner card packs and expert card packs. And someone asked about Babel, and they said it didn't sell as well, so they haven't made a decision yet if they're going to do that. They didn't say anything about the Wonders pack either. But it sounds like
Our friend has Babel
lower on the totem pole.
but I don't think we've played it yet. I have messed around with Wonders, and Wonders is smaller, so I can imagine that one be more like, we'll do it later kind of thing, because it's more like little promo stuff.
I feel like that one almost they should have just put into the new edition, like as a little like plus this.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see it as like a promo to give out during conventions or
maybe
show up on Board Game Geek store.
Oh, now that I can see, yeah. I'm just not familiar with the concept of conventions. That sounds like a distant past.
I thought you were going with promos there.
No, yeah, no. No, promos I know. I see Scott Armstrong in the chat says you've been replaced by Eric Lang. I have? I would love that. Michael Joyce said looks like... Yeah, go ahead. You read it.
Which one of us? Both of us?
Yeah, I don't know. Michael Joyce said it looks like... I've heard it said he looks happier now that he's out of the executive role. Gets to go back to what he wants to be doing, more game designs. I feel like, isn't every game designer, it seems like anecdotally, I've never heard of a game designer who's like, yeah, but my real passion is management. Like, I think they all would just want to hang out and make games, right?
I mean, that's one of those things I also don't think you're going to hear someone tweet like, day 65 of management, it's great. It's...
Hey, some people, I mean, that might be the fit for them. They might have more fun.
No, I know, but I'm just like, I don't think that's the kind of thing you tweet out. Just, it's one of those like, good news is not talked about.
Maybe, I don't know.
But, I think we're missing the bigger point here. I think Eric Lang secretly knows the true end date of Armageddon, and that's why he's left. I think he's going to kill Cthulhu.
You make a very valid point. That Death May Die was a prophecy, not a game.
Exactly.
Looks like Robin's in the chat with us. Says good morning. Good morning. I'm a longtime lurker, but I just wanted to let you know your board game news segments are the best I find on YouTube. You rock, Robin. You
thank
rock.
you very much.
You rock. Let's talk about some more board game news. Big news that came out recently: Ashes is Reborn, Rise of the Phoenixborn from Plaid Hat. They're bringing it back. And we're talking all about the way they're doing that in regards to the Team Covenant subscription system and all this stuff. Dragon 420's review channel, gotta go check them out, said, thanks for mentioning Ashes. Fans of the game are happy it's coming back. The subscription kit is great for those who have the base set and pick up the expansion packs, as this will update your cards. Will also bring you into place to get your hands on the new dice type and new deck upon release. Then the deck's based on the new dice type. Then we will be seeing where Ashes goes from there. Us fans are so happy this is happening and are following Ashes on the Plaid Hat site closely, so we stay up to date on all things about the game. I think maybe Dragon 420 is a plant for Plaid Hat. This sounds still is a little too. He knows too much about how to sell.
No, I just think he was someone who focused in on Ashes. I mean, that's what happens with these games when you get a strong fan base, and then you feel miserable when your card game ends. So there's a reason why they were able to get enough subscribers.
Yeah, all right. You had to take the high road and tell me I'm wrong about my joke. We got Falcon again because I had to include this. He said he's a fan of parentheses Falcon Ashes Rise of the Phoenixborn. Just a little fun tie in there.
He's secretly going to become one of the next leaders. I forget what they're called, the Ashborn or whatever.
Yeah, that Phoenixborn. It's in the title. Come on. Well, not anymore, I guess. Said he bought extra packs of cards, so he has the deck building flexibility. And has the 1.5 rules text fix right now, but having it on the cards will help with the flow of the game. So exciting times. Thomas Romanelli said, I'm cautiously optimistic about the Ashes Reborn efforts, although Isaac Vega and Fernanda Suarez are long gone. A solid game, he says he calls it Magic the Gathering for the rest of us, that never got the love it deserved. Looks like we'll finally have a chance to acquire the fabled 7th dice type. It'll be interesting to see how the promo characters are fleshed out with their own complete decks. Yeah, I guess that the entire original team, is not fully on board anymore, but I think with the foundation set in place and the team at Plaid Hat, I'm sure they'll be able to keep it going forward. I mean, is there any trading card game in history that like the original designers stayed on board longer than like 6 months or a year designing cards? Maybe, but it seems like often I think
they've stayed, but I don't know if every card game still has all their original designers on there.
Right. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying the designers are the ones who leave, right? Like most people want to move on to new projects. Like they rotate teams out and stuff.
Well, yeah, that's the other thing too. Like I know Magic has a huge, there's different teams for just the colors alone, so
right,
as the card game grows bigger, it's not just Richard Garfield.
Right. If it were, I might want to play Magic more. And Warpaint also commented about the fact that Plaid Hat is no longer with Asmodee. Says good move, perhaps. Says I'd love to see Fantasy Flight games do the same, just not the same publisher anymore since they took over. Yeah, I mean that's.
There's definitely been a lot less risks, I feel, from Fantasy Flight. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love my Arkham Horror card games, but it does feel everything is just already established properties.
Yeah,
and I don't even mean like Lovecraft. I mean like this card game line.
Yeah. I think it's a fair. There's a bunch of companies I probably would rather not see under the Asmodee umbrella, to be frank. But it is what it is. We're trying to make the best of it. I'm seeing more stuff going on in that chat over there. Robin has a quick question. When you teach games to people you play with, do you go as fast as you do in the videos? I can never keep up. I mean, sometimes we just play those videos.
That's
truly. So in those cases, yes. I do think that, and part of the thing with those videos, and it's nice to have in real life, is they're good at setting the stage and getting a lot of stuff in your head. And then the best thing is to still have somebody who has played the game before so that they can now that you saw that, it was quick and succinct, I can flesh stuff out as we go. That's what I like to use those for.
I'd like to use it to watch that, and then maybe like you know enough to start playing, and that so you like sort of learn along the way,
Yeah.
kind of thing. I mean, it also depends. Some games that doesn't work. You gotta know everything up front.
I think they're also they're really good for refreshers. If you if it's just been like a year since you've played, it jogs the memory. NY Deloth asked if Eric Lang made any kind of a statement. He did. Yeah, he posted on Twitter and Facebook his official reasonings. You can just Google it.
That's one of the reasons why I'm pretty sure that it was a reasonable split. You know, he made that very clear.
No, definitely. I mean, I'm not saying he was lying. But,
no.
But you never know. There could be other stuff that maybe there could be an NDA or something. You know what I mean? Like maybe he can't talk about.
True, but I mean
something.
the fact he said something, you know, and he had a whole thing, and it was.
I just like to put on tinfoil hats, you know. Craig Dean said, "Just got Root, and it was harder to teach than predicted. I got to study more. got a how to play for that too. Yeah, that's a tough one.
Anything with very asymmetrical groups is hard because as we've said, it's almost like 4 games in one.
Well, now it's like 6.
Oh, yeah.
And also RIP Transformers TCG. Pour one out.
Yeah.
Robin says that makes sense about the how to plays. I usually use those to get a feel for the game, but when it comes to learn, I cheat on you and go flirt with Rodney's videos. We forgive you.
I am hurt.
A bunch of dinosaur games were announced. We can talk about those from Pandasaurus. And Aaron Smith said, "I hope Dinosaur World is Legacy." What do you think about that? Would you like to experience a Dinosaur Island Legacy Edition? Maybe that's what that is.
I mean, I just want to hear something that makes it different from Island.
Well, so would you be okay with that though? Would you be cool with Legacy?
Probably. I mean, I'd be sad because I just know it's hard for us to finish Legacy games, but it's not the worst thing in the world. And Machi Koro Legacy turned out to be very popular, so I don't think that would be the worst of decisions to make.
I'll be more positive than you. I think that sounds awesome. I think it makes perfect sense because your park can like grow and like, in the first game you got a T-Rex pit or whatever, and now you still have it for your next game. That would be awesome.
You see, the reason why I was a little low because I'd be like, hey, I got it, and I expected you to be like, no, not another Legacy game. So the fact you're positive, I'm like, oh well, now I'm happier.
Yeah, well, I mean, to be sure, there's a difference between my enthusiasm for the idea of something and then our ability to actually do something in real life. But I like the idea of it. We threw some shade at Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom. Is that what it was called? And Edgar Donobre said the sequel wasn't that great. It was amazing, he says. Teach their own. We didn't find it amazing that this latest.
We liked World.
We liked, and some people don't like Jurassic World either, but we liked that one. Board Game Dungeon said there's also a new Jurassic snack coming out this year. Would have been great to have added that to your Too Many Dinosaurs list. So go look up Jurassic snack if you haven't had your fill of more dinosaur games.
Look, we've talked about how the board game scene there's been enough Cthulhu and zombie games, but there's no such thing as too many dinosaurs.
No, you can't have enough.
Never hit the dinosaur limit.
You can't even. Also, I'm doing this awkward thing right now. If people can see it, I got my computer speaker like moved so I can see stuff because my headphones connected to it and it's in front of my monitor. So I'm like peeking around to look at things on my screen. Sorry, I'm bobbing and weaving like a little pigeon here. Or like
I'm being
boxer.
lazy, just using my little headphone mic here while you have your nice one.
Yeah, well, I try to put in a little effort. That's all. We reviewed the digital version of Spirit Island. And one of our big misses was the fact that there's no online multiplayer component. And a few people echoed our complaint. Scythe Noir here said, "I'm speechless. They released the digital version without online multiplayer. They do know it's not 1994, right?" Burn. I also don't think they'll be making it online multiplayer later either, as some of their other digital games don't have that feature. I wonder if these guys just don't know how to do that type of coding? Truly, my guess would be, I don't know if I would say they don't know how to necessarily, but
the infrastructure.
They've probably just found that, well, these games are selling well enough as we make them, and we would need to hire like a whole other team or whatever to manage that. So maybe it's just not on their priority list. for that
Yeah,
reason.
it's just for a game like that already has so much information. Like I said, even like usually I'm always prefer couch co-op because back in the times when we could do that, but it just feels like when trying that, it just the screen was still cluttered with information. So if you were online, you could sort of remove that and you can talk with each other. And therefore, because you can't see everyone's stuff, you have to communicate more. It just seems like such. I mean, I'm just repeating what we said in the video, but such a perfect fit.
Yeah, they I feel like I looked and I actually feel like I remember there is another. I'm pretty sure it's Handelabra did the Spirit Island. I feel like there was another one they had that did have online multiplayer. Like I think they do have at least one other game with it. So I'm not sure. Maybe they just have certain budget, or maybe they partnered with someone else for that. But I don't know. I don't know what it is exactly. But yeah, it's a shame that it's not in there. Robin has another question here. It says, speaking of Legacy, did you finish Jaws of the Lion? It landed here in New Zealand last week, just wrapped up Scenario 4. The hype is real for the real deal to begin during our next game night.
We have not finished it yet, so no spoilers, please.
Yeah, although, but yeah, that's, it's one of those things. We would like to, of course, go back to it, but there's so many games always to play. But we can talk about Jaws of the Lion. I'll use that as a segue. And I'll just skip around. We're going to talk about this later, but we got Jaws of the Lion on the agenda here because we did review it since the last time we had a Meeple Gallery. Nico Chen said, I solo finished Gloomhaven in about 100-ish hours. The novelty wore off after the initial 20, while I forced myself 80 more hours to finish the game to get my money's worth. I doubt there are more than 1% of those people who give a 10 out of 10 on Board Game Geek who actually finish the whole campaign. It's a great game, but the same repetitive gameplay just drags on, and eventually I grew to hate the game. It's like going to see a blockbuster film, but instead of it being a good 2 hours, it drags on to a 20 hours endurance slugfest. I picked up Jaws of the Lion today, hoping this game could be finished within 20 hours this time, which is also the limit of my patience for this game. And that's why I think it's part of the reason we were so much more positive about Jaws of the Lion than the original Gloomhaven, because we didn't finish the original one either. Can't say we went 100 hours, but I could say I think we had a similar thing with Pandemic Legacy Season 1, where there's a certain point where I feel like I get it. You can stop now. I don't know if we would have that with Gloomhaven too.
It's a mixture because I'm thinking of Pandemic Legacy and then Aeon's End Legacy is also progression. Like Aeon's End, we bought pretty much at the end of each session, we got new cards to mess around with. And a boss acted really weird each time. Like Pandemic Legacy, maybe you unlocked a new character, but probably not going to use it, or it's like something you've already seen in regular Pandemic.
We'll get to a little Pandemic Legacy later too, so hold off on that.
But going to Gloomhaven, I completely understand the idea of continue to push through after you're sort of gotten bored of something. I guess it technically falls under the sunken cost fallacy, but I know sometimes I'm like, I really should just finish this, even though I'm not enjoying it anymore. I want to say I at least did it.
Yeah.
Because, like you said, because I think it's unfair then to be like, it's terrible. Well, did you finish it? Well, no. Is it like
true?
I mean, 10 out of 10, it's that kind of feeling.
Yeah. There's a to an extent, yes, but I mean,
to an extent. There's certain things also where you like. I mean, these are usually when you're on either the amazing or the really terrible end, when you can play a certain amount and be like, I know how this is gonna go. Like it's either so good or so bad. You're just like.
I mean,
I know.
And going back to what you were saying earlier too, Gloomhaven does have the progression thing of like new levels and retiring your character. So
it does, but I don't think it does at the same rate as Aeon's End. That's the thing.
Sure, but I feel like that is something that could also maybe playing it solo just isn't as compelling as.
I actually felt that was part of the thing with when we did Jaws of the Lion, because we did it with 3 versus 2.
Yeah, this could be more fun with that.
Yeah.
Richard Eva said, so hard, I'm definitely going to get either Jaws or original Gloomhaven. Can't decide. On the one hand, Jaws looks so much slicker and quicker to get set up. He's also a solo player. But on the other hand, I worry I'm going to get FOMO, feeling I'm playing a watered-down version of the original Juggernaut. I think we're both firmly in the camp of start with Jaws.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not only that, because Frosthaven's coming soon. So you might as well go Jaws. Plus, I think that's probably easier to find. Play through that. And if you had a blast, just get Frost. It's the new one.
That's true.
It's going to be the new hotness. Or
And I don't
cold
think
dip.
Jaws even really feels watered down. I mean, it's
Not really. I mean, the beginning it definitely shows it's a bit more like helping you out, and it doesn't have the character swapping, but I don't feel like we're missing out too much. You're still building this really cool character with this fun story.
95% the same rule set. You know, it's like it's still the same. It's really just to me felt like more missions, just they're dealt out in a more appealing way.
And then, if anything, I guess the other one would be a bit more competitive, so you'd want more other players for interaction, because you know you have not only your secret goals, but like I forget what they call them, but your like personal quest that once you do, you retire your character.
Long-term quest, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Which I assume would be more interesting to more people. Sorry.
That's okay. It's this, whoa, digital technology. Rick Schmidt, however, has a very, I mean, he's going even further than I would. He said, we'll probably replace the original with this one. The original is too much of a beast to get to the table, so it was largely a waste of money. So for him, it's just, nobody wants to play it, so he'd rather just get Jaws instead of Gloomhaven. Whereas I would say, well, if you like Jaws and you finish it, you're probably going to want to play the new one, or the full one. But
I think that's actually the trick, so to speak. If you play through and really enjoy Jaws, then you can jump into Gloomhaven. It won't feel as big anymore because you've got. I assume as soon as you finish Jaws, you've got the mechanics like really down pat, like enough to be like, yeah, I know how most of Gloomhaven works now. We can do that. Outside that last 10 to 5% you said that's not included, but I think that's enough. That doesn't seem to be that daunting, giant box that when it hits the table, we're like, well, that's the night.
that's the year.
I mean, it still might be, but you'll be excited.
Yeah. Let's see what's going on here. Oh boy, we got some Gloomhaven talk. NY, tell me if I'm saying your name wrong. NY Daloth said Gloomhaven expansion is always on sale. Maybe this is telling something of the number of people that actually have finished the game. Yeah, I think that's for sure. How many people really felt like they needed an expansion? There's so much content. And Robin said, what? I could not disagree more. I'm not sure I have to read more because I don't know what they're talking about. We played through the full campaign of Gloomhaven twice with my partner. She loves the story and legacy aspect. I love the strategy aspect. We got Jaws of the Line to play with other members of our game group because Gloomhaven is not realistic to play fully if you're not living together. Did not enjoy the expansion, though.
I think that's the thing, as you said, if you're not living together,
Yeah, but even living together, playing through it twice, that's, astonishing to me. You deserve a medal for that or something. Let's see. I see Michael Joyce played it with his wife and son. Enjoyed it a lot. Taking a break before starting with Jaws. Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, Scott Armstrong said was tracking the Gloomhaven campaign with the app on his phone, took a break for a few months, then his phone died, lost his data, and no idea how he can recover it. That sucks.
Yeah.
You think about, you run into losing your save game in a video game. I'd never heard of losing your save game in a board game before. That's rough.
I mean, it's the same concept.
Yeah, that's really rough. Let's jump to Pandemic Legacy. Of course, we've been talking a lot about Season 0.
So we're going to keep talking about people being angry at us.
Yeah, why not? No, a lot of people agree. Most people are happy with us. Season 0, well, first of all, since we last did viewer comments, it was announced. Its gameplay was revealed. We got to play it. And there was this whole controversy about it. So, there's a lot of ground to cover here from beginning to end. Brandon Graham said, I was never much of a fan of Pandemic. Kind of felt the same every time I played it, but I liked the Legacy version because it precisely did not feel like replaying the game over and over again. February or January completely changed the game for us, and we quickly got new types of buildings, relationships, skills, and stuff. Weird that it felt samey to you, meaning us, when Pandemic generally, so the audience, it's clear. When Pandemic generally has no variability except the order of some cards. I agree with you about the original Pandemic. I don't know, this is just one of those things where whatever it is, because we've talked about this a lot, but for some people, they felt like it was enough and they were excited to see what was new in Legacy, and for us, it wasn't. It felt like not enough, and I don't know what it is. It just didn't have that that secret sauce
I
that didn't work for me.
I think that at least for us in particular, it's not just not enough, especially if anyone's finished the legacy game. It's all the stuff that
I don't mean enough in terms of content.
no. I mean, in terms of new mechanics and stuff.
Okay, yeah.
And like by the time I feel like it really brought stuff that was really weird and interesting to the table, it was like October or November, the last quarter versus maybe the second quarter, which I think could have, if that stuff was introduced much earlier, I think for us, we'd feel much differently at least.
Yeah, and he says he was happy by February, so.
I think maybe part of it was this also wasn't our first Legacy game. We technically had already played a few rounds of Risk Legacy, so the idea of adding stickers and writing our names wasn't like the newest thing to us. So that could have been part of it.
Yeah, maybe.
Granted, we didn't finish that either, but that's a different story.
Didn't finish what?
Risk Legacy.
Oh, Risk Legacy. Oh, right. I mean, yeah. All right, next up. Ross Konopaski said, So now we're getting into this whole thing. I'll give a little context. There was a controversy that people thought that maybe Pandemic Legacy Season 0 was anti-Russian, pro-America propaganda. We had a whole video about it. Ross says, I'm 47 years old, so I was alive during the end phases of the Cold War. What I find offensive, in quotes, not really, I don't care, he says, is this generation's fanatical drive to erase and eliminate anything that doesn't fit in with current thinking. The Cold War happened, folks, and in the time period this game takes place in, it's real. Denying it because it makes you uncomfortable isn't virtuous, it's weak. I'm not celebrating communism, I'm not even American, so it's not that either. It's like folks are just looking for something to be mad about. Aren't there enough important current events that need your attention and action as is? In short, stop it. You're being weird. I mean, he's coming out strong, Ross, in our comment section, but I think I'm pretty much on his side in this instance. I agree, and I think I said as much in that video.
I mean, we're probably gonna repeat, but I still love just talking about it because I've never heard of anyone, regardless of the controversy behind it, review bombing a board game. Like we hear it all the time with video games, and just when I first, I'm like, wait, a board game's getting review bombed? It's
a little crazy, but and I think in our comment section, most people I'd say were on our side. There are a few people who were, felt that it was maybe inappropriate. And here's a comment from Talia Katzenjammer. Said, I'm not a fan of the review bombing. That being said, when I heard about the theme of Season 0, my first thought was that they apparently don't care about having Russian players. The Legacy series started with a theme that had almost universal appeal. Players are part of a team fights diseases. However, being forced to play as a CIA recruit is something that many people in the world would have a problem with. That doesn't necessarily mean the game shouldn't be made, but it does mean that many people will not want to play it for reasons I find understandable. Furthermore, the Cold War is over, but the relationship between the US and Russia is still challenging. While some people may be able to distinguish between a country's government and its people, others are not. Such views can lead to bad outcomes. Works of fiction can and do reinforce stereotypes. Therefore, I can understand if some people are not thrilled with the theme. The game may contain a twist, but one cannot expect people to buy and play through the entire game before judging its theme. People typically decide to buy a game based on the information available beforehand. Especially true for some people in countries where games are very expensive or not something you can buy often. So I think these are good points and very, very reasonable stance to take against the game. I think it really comes down to, personally, for me, I feel very comfortable separating the game and reality. To me, there may be instances of media where it crosses the line for me, but in general, I can compartmentalize and just be like, okay, this is doing something different. It's not about real life. Maybe sometimes it is, but for some people, I get that that's not, it's just not okay for them, and it's harder for them to make that adjustment, I guess. I don't know. That's my read on it. Anything else you want to add?
Not really.
Okay.
I can't think of what else to really add that'd be worthwhile for that.
That's what we're here for, folks. All right.
I mean, we said it already in the video.
Yeah, fair enough. And on the subject of controversial takes, A. Wallach wanted to know if we're going to take on the topic of wheelchairs in D&D next. Did you hear about these wheelchairs?
I did a little while later. I was very confused about it at first, and I'm very confused why anyone cares.
Well, we should give what this is that and I think it's in the newest book, or maybe it was an online supplement.
It
I'm
wasn't
not
a
sure.
book. It was online. Yeah.
But
Online,
Wizards,
not officially in a book or anything.
but it was officially from Wizards of the Coast. They put out a thing you can use in a game where it's a wheelchair, but it's like a combat wheelchair. So you could have a disabled person. Please forgive me if that's not the currently correct term for it. I'm sorry, but in a wheelchair, but still, part of a party and being able to, attack and stuff like that in a cool way. And yeah, I just think that sounds fun and cool, but I don't know what the controversy really was.
Right. That's what I mean by I don't see why people care. Not that why in a wheelchair, because I feel like there are probably people already doing something like that. It is
Right.
nice to have the official.
I think
word,
maybe
but, like,
it was based
if
on a fan made thing. I'm not
you
sure.
know, you just do whatever you want in your campaign. If someone wants to do that, let them. They're probably nice. It doesn't sound like there are much more annoying things people want to do. Like be level 1 wizard and a ranger, but you can be use the command man. I'm also Shrek, and
Stay tuned. Hey, why are you giving things about our next stream away? That's our new campaign. What do we got? Let's see. Some people. Oh boy, I can't. Recycler issue started Pandemic Legacy Season 1 and says it gets fun. They're in July, so people like it. Of course, we know. What else? People are talking about Gloomhaven. All right. Let us know if you have any more questions in the chat. Can't read them all. Let's get to some more comments we got. Gen Con happened. You remember that?
I think that happened like a few moons ago.
Yeah, a few moons ago. There was a lot of news. And let's talk about some of it. There's a lot going on. Marcel the Archibald said that Fantasy Flight's Descent tease was like a cool shower after a long, hot summer day. Very refreshing. Can't wait to see what they will or will not innovate with this version. Descent.
Yeah, I just want to, because, thinking about what we were talking about earlier with Fantasy Flight, was that stream. Think about how much of that stream was stuff we already knew about, or like more expansions coming to Arkham Horror. Okay. And it was like the actual really new stuff. We got the X-Men game at the very end, and then just showing Descent. The stuff that's actually, and Descent still is a remake of a game they already have. So that's not like completely new.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But just going back to how we were just talking about, I mean, it makes them money. Don't get me wrong. I'm buying the Arkham Horror stuff. I just got the new Gloria book. I'm so excited. Our favorite Arkham investigator is coming to the card game.
It's hard. It's a hard thing to balance. Yes, you'd like to see them do both.
I think they could.
Marcel continues. Was happy about 1,000 Year Vampire winning at the Emmy Awards, one I'm still interested to play. Mm-hmm. And also says, love all the new Alien games coming out, whether RPG, card, or dice games, but when can we get a real scenario-based dungeon crawl? I know Nemesis simulates the experience, but I want to play the real deal. I think that's what Gale Force 9's is.
I would definitely think that falls under a dungeon crawl.
That's what you're waiting for, I think. We'll see how that turns out.
Speaking of, when did we recently we had a discussion what it means to be dungeon crawl?
Yeah, it was on our podcast on Patreon.
That's where it was.
Sign up if you'd like to listen.
That was actually unintentional on my part. I legitimately could not remember where we had this conversation.
Oh yeah, I knew it was unintentional. But yeah, Thomas Romanelli says that Descent may be the most interesting reveal, especially because Fantasy Flight is pushing large box games again. The thing will take up an entire Calyx shelf. It's also, he says, labeled Act 1. I actually didn't remember that. So Fantasy Flight will presumably be releasing additional content in the future. What? Fantasy Flight releasing additional content? Can't believe it. Says, aside from the technical snafus, I think Chris Gerber and the FFG crew did a good job trying to keep the tradition of the in-flight report under very trying circumstances. Most excited for Twilight Imperium expansion because it's more Twilight Imperium.
Yeah, I mean, I love teasing them about their stream, mostly just because it slowly makes me feel better about our own horrible technical issues. But
knock on wood, we're doing great.
I mean,
yeah, it's exciting. Oh, thank you.
But I mean, sticking to what I said before, the stuff's cool. Like if you're a Keyforge fan, you're probably pretty happy. If you're an X-Wings fan, you're happy. I just wish they're like peppered a little bit more of like We've got a new version of Battlestar. It's not the Battlestar theme, but
Sorry, I
we've
mean,
got
it is kind of funny that you say you want new stuff and what you really want is a
Well,
reprint.
I thought that one, just because I know that one's highly desired.
Yeah, but I know what you're saying. You wanted
So
to
I
branch
went
out.
with a low-hanging fruit, is what I'm saying.
Alex O in the chat said, pre-ordered the Gale Force 9 Aliens game over a year ago. I'll believe it when I see it. Right there with you. I think they still said right now on track for October, but we'll see. Peter Gross said, Fantasy Flight Games may as well have called X-Men Mutant whatever, Insurrection I believe is the title, by its real name, Elder Sign for Marvel lovers. Now, this is something we didn't... I never got the chance to talk to you, but I saw other people saying it. They announced this new X-Men dice game, or Mutant Insurrection, and at the time we were like, oh, well, this looks interesting. This could be cool. And I, after the fact, saw people saying, looks like it's a reimplementation of Elder Sign, which I haven't played and you have.
Bored, so that's why I just assumed, oh, it's gonna be dice and growing. But if it's like Elder Sign, where there was like almost you weren't really building a dice pool as much. It really felt like you needed the dice gods to be on your side to play that game, and that just became really annoying. Like, and I know people have said there are expansions that help, but I just feel as the base game itself, and maybe they learned that. Maybe X-Men will take the stuff from the expansions that everyone says you need to go with the base, and that'll be in there, and that'll fix it.
Yeah.
But if it is just a simple like roll 2 or 3 dice to try to match perfectly, at least for me, it just felt like you've played the Arkham Horror and Eldritch Horror. You know how hard enough it is to roll, and you hope for a 5 or a 6.
Yeah, I think we've seen from what they've put out that there's certainly are cards and stuff that will help you augment your dice. So I don't think it's going to be that basic, but
that would be the biggest thing. Like, even if it's basic, as long as you feel like you can do a bit more controlling, and that's when I like when you can build a dice pool or really manipulate. That's why I think Sagrada Role Player, what they do is it's not just simply rolling dice and hope for what you get. You have all these different ways to mess around with them. Yeah. And I think that's what changes it from annoying randomness to fun puzzle.
Yeah. Straddle W said, don't care about any new releases. Twilight Imperium expansion is enough news for me for the next 3 years. It's single-handedly made 2020 bearable. I mean, that's wow. That's strong words. So, I mean, I'm happy for that.
I mean, we were expecting, like I brought up Arkham Horror card game and stuff, but I don't know if Twilight was as much of a safe bet, so I can understand why fans of that game are a bit more excited, especially since I believe this is actually new content.
Yeah.
It wasn't not reprinted.
New edition or something.
A revert of the old versions. And I do think the alien tribes look really cool.
Yeah.
Especially like the bird-looking one.
Okay, so I heard you inhale. I mean, I thought
that's all. I'm not going to go into details because I haven't played the base game, so I can't be like, I can't wait to try to do this.
Great, it's fine. You didn't know. All right, more Gen Con talk about Gen Con overall now, and maybe what people liked or didn't like about it. And let's see. The Ernie 4SS said, I really like this Gen Con this year just because I spent no money, and it felt like E3. I felt like I was there too. Thanks for all the content. Also, I miss E3 so much. Yeah. I missed.
How do you feel about that? Because I know you were much more into E3 and keeping track of that.
Yeah, that's sad. We didn't get all the. I always wanted Gen Con to become more like E3, so I sort of got my wish. Come on now. No, I want more of the whatever. But I mean, E3 is pretty much done now.
I mean, at some points I'm happy I also didn't spend as much, but I think part of it was just because I didn't feel like there was anything new announced. Like, the new stuff that was announced was more like coming soon, not here. We have it out available now.
Yeah.
As much. So.
Yeah, that's what's good. Hi to Steve Park Smith in the chat. Says he likes our news. We'd like your news too, buddy. Back to Gen Con. Robin Rising said, I got to play like 5 new hot games a day with devs and sometimes reviewers. That's great. I hate how cons end up being line waits. So they found that by, via Tabletopia and stuff like that on Discord, they were able to play a bunch of new games better than having to wait in line. So success on that
Unfortunately, front. I think if we were to do what we hope would be somehow of a two-prong of both digital and physical, probably wouldn't see the designers as much on the digital front, since they'd probably be forced to do panels and do stuff in the physical more. I assume that's where the companies would have them.
No, but they could always hire, get volunteers the same way they do it.
Right, no, you still have the games and you still have that chance. But this is probably one of those rare times when you've had the chance to play with reviewers and game designers.
I don't know. It depends. Yeah, it depends.
I mean, I don't think permanently off, but it might be like only like 1 or 2 games.
Sure.
Versus maybe one sitting at
because
the
you don't.
table.
It's not like you always go to the Fantasy Flight booth and Eric Lang's not sitting there with his or come on, So like they could do it if they're anyway. Sarah Traeger said, "I missed Island Noodles. Is that a restaurant? I don't know what that is."
No, they do the
Is that a food truck?
lo mein thing. I think it's like when you ever see people with lo mein in like the little food containers, bright yellow containers.
I've somehow missed this every year. I don't know about Island Noodles.
I know that's one of the ones I usually see people get and carry around a lot.
And seeing all the crazy con-only stuff like jumbo games and crazy displays. I hosted ticketed demos on Zoom this year. It was okay, but mostly people just seem to be trying to make the best of things. Yeah,
I mean, that's
how it is sometimes.
what I think this was, but I think that's the idea is to use this as a trial. So in the future, we could then have both the physical and digital and combine them and learn. One of the reasons we haven't done this before is because I don't think they had to.
Yeah.
They were forced to learn now.
Tomer Gilrun said, "I got a badge, but didn't get to join any of the events. It was too confusing to find something and realizing which time it's going to start, local time. I joined the BGG and Dice Tower event a few weeks before, and over there it was much simpler, even though over there I also needed to convert the time to my local time." So yeah, there's someone who found that the issues with the events and planning and scheduling, and it wasn't clear what times they were starting. So for some people,
maybe something that
it was harder.
Yeah, maybe in the future, if they keep the digital, have like when you look through, all the different events, you can like click time zones.
That'd be
to
nice.
make sure.
Yeah, especially, for these events, they're pretty international usually, especially online. And the Zilla said, "Something I don't miss. Gen Con's awful event registration system crashing 5 seconds after it goes live, then finding all my desired events are sold out when it comes back up." So I guess mixed bag.
Mm-hmm.
Mixed bag. Let's talk about some stuff that some games that were coming out of Gen Con that we talked about on our channel. We reviewed the new RPG Vaesen, which comes from Free League Publishing. And I think one of the things you said was about maybe some of the, the fact that the included story in there doesn't fully flesh out everything, like the local town and whatnot. And Carl Frederick L. said, "Uppsala is a real town. You can Google the words Uppsala 1800 -TAL, 19th century. I'm not sure exactly what all that means, for inspiration. So there you go. If you need something to do, if you're playing Vase in the rulebook and you're not sure what to populate the town with, you can just look at the real town in that era and use that. So maybe that will help. Michael Corinis had a question. We answered this in the chat, actually. Said, "How many Vaesen are described in the book? Curious to see how often they'll need to come up with monsters after the base scenarios." She said scenarii. Is that a pluralization? And we looked this up. There's 21 in that core book. So I think that's a pretty decent amount. And he asked if they're similar to those described in the initial book from Johan Egerkrans. And my guess would be yes, but I have not read that book.
I have not looked through that book, so I cannot answer that one.
Yeah.
My guess is there's probably some subtle changes to make it more gamey, because that's usually the case in these kinds of situations.
Yeah. I have to apologize. I think I'm getting my mouse cursor in front of your face because I'm as I scroll through things. So I gotta try to keep this cursor somewhere else. Yeah. All right. Because that always bugs me when I see it on the screen. So hopefully it doesn't bug anyone else too much. All right. Let's see. Another thing we talked about was the new Vampire the Masquerade Rivals game. This is the expandable card game from Renegade Game Studios. And Hangst2404 pointed out, said, I have not played Game of Thrones. That's the card game we compared it to. The political stuff sounds like it calls back to Jihad or Vampire the Eternal Struggle, predating Game of Thrones by at least a decade. Yeah, a couple people pointed out this game, Vampire the Eternal Struggle, which it sounds like they used perhaps as inspiration for this one. Not a game that we're familiar with. So there it is. We also played, you reviewed Dark Knight's Metal, the new DC deck building expansion. And I didn't even watch it, so I'm not sure if I know how you actually felt about it, if you overall liked it or not. But Steve Barnard said, I found the weakness cards aren't really a problem. Playing 2 consecutive weaknesses doesn't happen much, so basically it was pretty much a standard game, like the core set. Consequently, the characters getting captured didn't happen much, and there wasn't really a downside to it. If your character gets captured, you just trade it for another, so the Batman Who Laughs was just this weird section on the table that people only took notice of now and then. Is that something you felt?
I played a lot more with a small, like a 2, I think 1-3, and that wasn't even folded because the percent. It was weird because
terms
it's
of
hard to
player
get
count.
4.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I was at the same. That's what happened to me too with the weaknesses, where both of us are heavy veterans of the DC deck building game, so we knew how to moderate our deck and play the odds pretty well.
I think most people who would pick this up would be, don't you? I mean,
Right. And I wasn't sure whether having that 4th person there would mean more attacks and more weaknesses getting thrown about. But I like the idea behind it. Once again, first of all, just anything that changes weaknesses. And they were the same ones from not DC, from the hockey deck building one. And I know in that one, when I played with 4 players, weaknesses did come up. There were times when we got the penalties. So I was like, oh, that's what's going to happen. I do think that's what they should do, is pull from the other mechanics. And like I said, I also mentioned the best thing about it, in my opinion, though I think it needs some tweaks, was the metal sub keyword, Jonathan.
yeah.
Because there are a lot of cards that said, like, do this for every metal card. So it's more interesting besides just the hero, the superpower, because they can cross over. Problem is that because unlike Cartoon Network, which is where I think they first introduced that, where they had like 2 or 3 different keywords, spread a bunch of different cards. There's only metal, and metal tended to reward metal.
Right.
So
right.
you sort of snowballed even faster. Like if most of the non-metal cards wanted metal, so you'd had to balance, that would have been a little better. But still, I think a lot of great ideas in there, just maybe need to be fleshed out a little bit more.
Well, by the way, I just realized that I had your screen extending past our border, so I just fixed it.
I'm just that big.
Daedalus25 said, sadly, this is going to be a hard pass for me. I've been collecting all the DC deck building game expansions, and lately, they've all just been feeling the same until Rebirth came out. Finally, they made something new and interesting, and my group loved it. Although the legacy aspect he thinks was unnecessary. I was hoping they'd continue supporting the new co-op format. Dark Knights feels like a step backwards. What do you think?
Well, in our interview, it sounded like they actually are.
Sounds like they're just continuing it as a separate line.
Yeah, and I think that's the idea, at least the way I got from the way she told us. So I would not be surprised because I think they just wanted to go back to the core, if maybe later on they go more of like a back and forth kind of deal.
Sorry, I'm just choking to death on some water.
And Jonathan's dead.
I don't have COVID, I promise.
But I think and like I said in my review for this, I think they really should make a Dark Metal Knights version for Rebirth, because I think it works there. The theme, just working together and stuff against them.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are just a lot of people who are fans of the base format, but yeah, I mean, I'm in this guy's camp. I enjoyed Rebirth a lot. Anyway, chats. Robin says you're making some bold fashion statements today, but I'm not sure what he's talking about.
I don't know. There's nothing to see here.
I don't know. Looks like Mark's in the chat. He wants to know, what video game IP would you want to see next for a Rivals type game? So I guess like an expandable card game format.
With the competitive and political aspect?
I guess, but maybe it doesn't have to have a political aspect, but...
It's just, okay, strictly video game.
So he says video game IP. I mean, I'm drawing a blank. I'll be honest. I'm trying to think of, because it's got to have enough stuff in it for multiple factions and stuff and new packs.
Right, like the first one that came to my head mostly just because I've been playing it recently, but would be
Assassin's Creed Odyssey?
No, well, just Assassin's Creed in general.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
I think that'd work better than Netrunner. Where there's the 2 asymmetrical sides.
Let's just say LCG in general. I mean.
But it turns out if that free for all multiplayer. He said no politics needed, so I'm gonna just stick with that one.
Cool. I don't know why. I can't think of anything right now. It's just nothing's coming to me. Nothing's coming to me. Great question, though. Maybe I'll think of something later. He also asked if there are any good Mass Effect board game or card games. I think there's a Mass Effect Risk out there for you.
I think that's the best you've got right now.
Is that what you're looking for?
I would not be surprised, though, if we hear, oh my God, I'm completely blanking on the name of the company. They did the Dark Souls game and
Steam
Horizon Zero.
Forged.
Steam Forged. Considering they've done a lot of digital video games into board games, and hopefully you like miniatures because if they do, that's what they're gonna do.
I could see Mass Effect as an LCG. Because I think what's cool about Mass Effect is like the squad based tactics. So you could if maybe it's co-op, maybe it's more like Marvel Champions, and each player is like a role, and you're like that could be cool.
I don't know what the story is now with. Is it 3?
It doesn't matter. We don't need to get into it. All right. Now pivoting from DC deck building game, I also put out my video for my ranking of all the legendary expansions. It's now incomplete because there's a new one that's available, but it was complete about 2 weeks ago. And some people had thoughts. Darth Ed 77 said Ant-Man is a lot higher for me. While size changing isn't that exciting, microscopic size changing is amazing. Once you've played enough cards of a certain class, recruiting a card from the HQ could give you Recruit, combined with Focus Heroes from Fantastic Four for some cool combos. He says I should take another look at this one. I said I could see it moving up a couple places
I can play it.
on my list. Yeah, we'll see. Size changing just didn't thrill me, but it's hard to come up with that many cool keywords sometimes, so I kind of get it. Like the characters themselves it's probably pretty good. It just, I guess thematically is where it disappointed me. The Welcome Matt said, he said it was an excellent video, but that's not the only reason I chose this comment. Said, I just got into the game in the last 4 months, can't get enough of it. I would love to know your favorite heroes, villain, henchman groups, and masterminds, maybe like a top 10. Maybe future content, perhaps. World War Hulk expansion is what made me interested in that storyline and is pretty good. Thinks it would have been cool as a full-on movie. But, of course, there's still the Planet Hulk cartoon, at least. Has a lot of different thoughts on all the different things. But I thought I would use this comment to ask, you got any, since you weren't a part of that video, you got any favorite heroes, groups, and or expansions in general from Legendary Marvel?
Expansions, I think the Secret Wars ones, because I think that's when they introduced the hybrid color cards, and I really like that just because I think it gives a lot of flexibility. I really like Domino, but I think she's a bit overpowered with her versatile. They toned it down for the rest of them. And I know you're not a fan, but I really do love the 2-cost Spider-Mans because I love just flipping, or flip.
It's not that I don't mind them. I just hate that that's every Spider-Man character.
Right. And I guess to me, I don't mind. That's what I'm saying. I'm a bit warmer to you than you are.
Yeah, it just sucks to me that, well, let's talk about this right now. Look, Matt D wrote a comment. He said, I also love Spider-Man. However, the Paint the Town Red expansion makes me only want to buy 2-cost cards and then cycle through my whole deck every turn. It's OP and boring for my teammate. He also likes Guardians of the Galaxy. He has a couple questions too, but he thinks it's just too good is his complaint, which is interesting.
The thing is, I've seen times when it seems like it's really good. It depends what card. Like,
it all depends on the setup.
What's their name from the villains?
I don't know. The new recruits.
Like that's just with them, Spider-Man is.
But even the sidekicks too.
The difference, I feel like sidekicks, some of them aren't as good at the time. But I really think it's the new recruits that really just. But sidekicks sort of too. I did forget about Guardians because I do love. I know we've said this before, but artifacts are such a fun mechanic.
Yeah.
And plus with those shards, so that's why I'm really looking forward for the shards are coming back, aren't they?
They're back. They're back right now in the new Eternals expansion. I think it's called Into the Cosmos. Eternals is coming later. This one has other Cosmo people. He also wants to know, Matt D. I actually answered this in the comments, but maybe you can speak to it. Do you think they should release new versions of base heroes like they did with Thor? I think we've talked about this in the previous comments. I'm pretty sure you didn't think that was worth it.
I'm sorry. What do you mean new versions of base heroes like Thor?
Like the fact, like when they came out with the new Thor expansion, there's a Thor in that too. That's different from the one in the core set, like a new hero set of cards.
I'm not crazy about the idea, mostly because I don't think any of them. I'm sure if I played a lot more Legendary, I would be able to tell you the power curve and be like, oh yeah, there's power creep or something. But for the most part, I feel like everyone is pretty fine.
To me, it's
And
not
still fun to
about
play with.
it's not about balance. It's more that I feel like the keywords and stuff they came up with later are so interesting and diverse that when you go back and look at like, oh man, like, you know, some new obscure character no one's heard of has like this crazy power, and you look at the top of the deck and you do this stuff, and it's like, wow, what does Iron Man do? He likes tech.
Right, but I feel,
I'd
I
like
feel
to
like
see
that's
them
still,
do more.
I like to have some more simple. There's simple is sometimes all right.
Yeah,
And,
I mean, I
and
get it.
the other thing is we've seen superior Iron Man. Yeah, I think it's superior.
But like, what if
God
Iron
knows
Man
how many
had like,
Spider-Man.
what if he had like his, or I mean, the obvious example is like, what if redid Cap and he had his shield as an artifact? They might have actually done that with a version of Cap. I forget.
That my point is, I don't
Or
think.
what if
it's
Iron Man could use shards or something, and they were like pieces of his like bullets, like missiles he shot out? I just feel like there is cool stuff you could do. I don't know.
No, there is cool stuff for some of them, and also certain keywords make sense for people because they were made afterwards. Like artifact is the big example, like you brought up. So I mean, if they wanted to do like a new version where the captain has his shield as an artifact now, that's fine. I'm not going to be like, this is ruining the game. I don't think you need to make a whole new core set.
I also just would like to see them update the art. To be honest,
that would be more. Honestly, I'd be more about that than the actual text on the cards.
Also wants to know if there's any heroes or villains that we're still waiting for. And I think I've said for you, what is it? Or not the captain, but Moon Girl and Devil Sword, I believe they're called.
Yeah.
And for me, I want to see more Spider-Verse stuff.
Sorry, what'd you say you wanted?
More Spider-Verse stuff.
No, that would be my other ones. I think I like that character, Dinosaur, but also I think Into the Spider-Verse that would be such a fun expansion. The cards would look so good, and then, I mean, yeah, we already have. I think we actually have all. No, we don't. Yeah, we have everyone but Spider-Ham. I think it's technically already in there, but I don't think anyone's going to complain.
Well, we don't have. What do you mean by everyone?
I mean the main characters in the movie.
No, we don't. We don't have like the Japanese version, do we?
Oh, I forgot about her.
Yeah.
I was going like Miles, Peter, Gwen,
yeah, like
Noir. I was like, we don't know. We do have Noir.
Yeah, I guess. Robin in the chat also asked about Legendary James Bond. Says, did you ever see that coming when it was announced and the expansion for it? And thinks that they might have been the only buyers and probably won't get the expansion. I don't think we ever would have. I don't think in all of our years of saying, what should they make a Legendary of, we ever thought that would be one. No.
I mean, before seeing it, we were surprised, but I was also like, well, there's a lot of 007, so that could be something. But, afterwards, I think we've said it before, I wasn't as warm about it when you were.
Yeah, I mean, I still just feel like, I mean, I liked what they did with it, and I want to play it more to fully develop.
Oh, I'm more than happy to play more of it.
And I will buy that expansion. It wasn't like oh man, day one purchasing that, but for sure I'm gonna, I think, eventually add it to my collection.
Yeah, here's what happens. If he doesn't, he's pretty much telling me I can get that for like Christmas or a birthday present.
That's a layup right there. All right, some more random stuff. Let's go. Manuel Lopez wanted to know, what do we prefer between the physical versions of Sagrada and Role Player, which you brought up earlier? Do you have a preference
between those two games?
Yeah, between those two games. Do you like one better than the other? I haven't played the physical Sagrada, so I can't really weigh in, but I'm a big Role Player fan. I feel like based on the digital version, my hunch is I would probably still like Role Player. There's more stuff going on in it that I think I like.
I think it's just that, yeah, it comes down to also the theme. We're suckers for theme games.
Yeah,
and Role Player has that a bit more.
It's got dungeons.
I feel also there's a bit more weird. Like Sagrada, feel like there are ways you can sort of hate draft your opponent on certain dice, but I feel it's at least in my mind much more present in Role Player. Like I'm much more picky with my dice and how they affect you than in Sagrada.
They're saying it feels less like a solo experience, more interactive. Interesting.
I mean, you could still be a big jerk in Sagrada. Don't get me wrong, but it just feels like that comes up a lot less than in Role Player. Like you can look at people's dice and be like, because it's not just simply taking a dice and putting it on. It's also your placement in the market. Which items are around and things like that, and then throwing all the expansions that they have.
Yeah.
So if I had to choose, I'm
If
going
you
role
had
player.
to choose, all right.
But I think both of them are great additions to a collection.
The Ernie 4SS. You were trying to think of. We were talking about they had announced a new board game based on that Sniper Elite. No, yeah, is that what it's called? Yeah, the new board game based on a video game. And you were trying to figure out if you had played it or not, and you were thinking of a game called Silent Scope. He says,
All right.
which is an arcade sniper game. Different game. So just thought I'd put your mind to rest if you're still wondering about that.
Thank you very much.
1 or 2 months later.
Not you, to the comment.
Oh, you're welcome. He didn't say he wanted to put your mind at rest. That was all me. All right, next up, Hudson BBA has a comment about this Kickstarter for the Wormwood tables, which are these expensive premium gaming tables that like were sold out through the next millennium.
Yeah, pretty much.
And this is not the first time we've seen that kind of project on Kickstarter. There's been gaming tables out there before. And he says, it blows my mind so many people are willing to spend that much on a gaming table when you can buy the equipment and materials for much less, not to mention wait so long to get it. We built our table in under 2 months and is very sturdy and will last a long time. I understand it may seem daunting, but the learning curve to build a gaming table is much more shallow than one would think, and there are many tutorials out there on how to do so.
Yeah, here's the thing.
What's the thing?
Because I know I've heard a similar argument when it comes to laundry. You know those dryer not dryer towels, but the little pieces like you can put in your dryer so it smells a little nicer and fresher.
The lint,
those things.
The sheet, the dryer sheet.
Yeah, the sheets, dryer sheets. And then people have said like, why don't you just you just need to buy towel, use the drops and stuff. Like for a lot of people, it's just easier to be like click buy and not think about it.
Well.
There's a certain yes, it's probably cheaper.
I will say in this scenario, I mean, dryer sheets cost like $5 for 400 of them.
Well, no, they said it's still cheaper to do
but a gaming table is can be like $600. You know what I mean? Versus
right, but just the not having to think about like screwing something up or not buying the right nails or because you never built anything before. Just the peace of mind, I think, is why people like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think
and
that's...
also, it depends. Like, if you live in a small apartment, you don't have as much space versus having a garage. Like, if you have a garage, you have plenty of space to build a table and stuff.
That's very
the other
true.
Big thing too.
I will say, from what I know, which is not much, is, a full table might be a lot, but I feel like what would be maybe pretty feasible is augmenting an existing table. So stuff like just having like an indented layer with like a cover on it, like nothing too fancy, but maybe that's like the middle ground that you could find of not building a whole table from the ground up, but starting with something and just getting a few wood pieces that you can like glue together or whatever you do with wood. I don't know. Maybe there's ways out there. He says there's a lot of tutorials, so maybe it's easier than we think. I haven't looked into it. I don't know. Let's see. Scott said, and they already bought a garage full of power tools, so that's something you got to take into account. I mean, yeah, it's true. It's true. And Mark said, kind of like a pre-built PC versus building your own rig. Seems intimidating, but really not that bad. That's true as well. I would agree. I would agree with that. And Scott thinks it's a terrible take. Says not everyone has a garage to build a huge piece of furniture. Now, space is certainly a factor. That is true. But then, I don't know. I just don't know enough about woodworking.
I mean, I just know I've built enough IKEA furniture to hate it.
Oh, I love building IKEA furniture. That's fun. You put on a podcast, some music, and it's like, let's go. All right, anyway. I want to finish off by talking about a couple of discussion videos we had over the past couple of months about some interesting subjects, and people had really good thoughts about these topics. The first one is the subject of board games that you only get to play one time or a limited amount of times, and once you play it, you're done. Controversial subject. Warpaint said, one and done games are always a pass for me. When it comes to board games, I'd prefer value for money by way of replayability. I've avoided every single one of those games. I leave my one and done for video games. I was thinking about this comment. I was thinking about why is it that, for video games, one and done is much more accepted. And I think maybe the biggest factor is just because they don't take up any space. a video game. And the fact that a board game is like something that actually sits on your shelf makes you feel worse about having to look at it and the fact that you're never going to play it again. Do you think there's anything else to that?
I think it's more of just where they started, you know. Board games initially started with like Monopoly and Candyland, things that they're repeatable. Video games, you felt like, you had the high score thing.
Yeah,
but
high score. That was pretty big early on. Pac-Man, you went back to that arcade every day to keep playing.
But still, they hit that. They've already gone to the one and done much earlier. I don't think board games only recently, I feel like, really been pushing the one and done scene. So it's just not something everyone's used to yet. Yeah. It's one of those things that I think as more of them come out, be much more of a common thing to accept.
Yeah, good points. Alexander Jarabek. Oh, I said it wrong, but he's from Cherry Pick Games. He's the designer of some games we really like. He commented. He said, "I wish more legacy games had a replayable end state. Like if Pandemic Legacy gave you a clear set of rules to turn it into a special variant when finished. Instead, you're left with a bunch of pieces and cards you'll never use again. There's also a sustainability angle to all this." A few commenters talked about this. "It feels really wasteful to put a used legacy game in the trash, but I also don't really want to hang on to it forever. These games should always provide a way to reset the game to a base state, even if it's just to allow them to be given away."
Well, yeah. I actually want to comment on, because one and done doesn't mean legacy.
Sure, but we did talk about legacy in our videos, so we can separate the two for now.
And there are actually, I know Aeon's End you can play again.
Yes,
I don't know if you can go to the story, but that's definitely something I think that
it is a thing that exists, but certainly not for all of them.
Right, and I know for Pandemic Legacy, for example, I know that one is done. So it's actually, the board is framed right over there, and I was able to take apart and recycle pretty much most of it. So remember, cardboard can be recycled, and I think that's one of the things that's pretty easy to recycle, unlike plastic, which is a pain.
Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about how recycling works.
No, that's true. Well,
that's the other big thing I think you ended up with, giving away, like Sherlock Holmes, any of those more story mystery games are great for that. Because, you can play around with one or two people, and then, you give it to a different group of friends to play around. Or sell it for cheaper, Yeah. And that's why I think those are fine. And those are, I think, the one and dones we enjoy more.
Yeah. Well, the one and dones, my problem with Pandemic Legacy has nothing to do with the one and done aspect of it.
No, right. But I mean, in general, if like games that would have that fit, I think we just
don't
unintentionally.
Worry. You'll be able to say more stuff as we keep going on this subject. Marcel coming back, he says, "Replayability is dead." There, I said it. If you're watching this channel, then you are not a Monopoly or Uno player. You are a lifestyle gamer. And you play games like most other folks read books, watch Netflix, or play sports, and chances are you own more games than you have time to play them. I challenge anyone to claim that they only buy games they have replayed more than 6 times. Maybe you do have a dozen favorite games that you actually play every month, but then what? You stop buying new games? Nonsense. Gamers love the idea of owning a library of evergreen games, prized museum pieces to show off like art. But the reality...
crouching here as it's calling right out. Yeah.
But the reality is that they still aren't actually playing these games. So yeah, replayability is dead. Live with it. And he says, P.S. That's why legacy and campaign games like Gloomhaven are so popular. They offer us a true incentive to work through 12 plus game sessions. These games are the new replayability of the game industry. I mean, this is true.
Does Gloomhaven count?
This is true because I've played, because Pandemic Legacy, like some people would argue, oh, I can't play it infinite times. Because that game is legacy, I've played it more than other games that you technically could replay infinitely. And I would wager that is true for a number of gamers.
That is true, but, and just the small counterpoint here.
Please, play devil's advocate for me.
That's the thing. I don't think it actually is a devil's advocate point.
All right, play demon's advocate.
In terms of
play
the
Devil
game
May Cry.
We've played the most, would actually be Legendary, which would, I think, fall under the repeatable category, right? The replay, it's not a one and done.
I think it's got some competition, but yes, of course.
And I think we're still happy with it. So I think you're likely to have maybe one game that's your repeatable game.
Sure, you might even have 10.
But right, but that would be impressive if you
You might.
I think this goes back to the old thing that we always fail at, the 10 by 10 challenge.
Well, we attempted it once, I think, and I quickly realized year two, I was like,
always fail.
That didn't work. But yeah, I mean, I agree with his sentiments pretty much. I said as much in the video that it's not as important to me anymore. It used to be my number one thing. Like with Legendary, I loved how replayable it was, and now I'm like, well, I get to play this 3 times? Hell yeah. I'm in.
Once again, and I'm sure we said in the video, it's also that's one of the things that's for us because we're actually trying to play as much as we can.
It's true. It's definitely more for us, but I don't think we're as unique as you might think.
I'm not like. I think he's right. There's a bit more of a lifestyle. I mean, this is not board games, but I think it's the same kind of mindset. Is Steam? How many people on Steam out there have bought thousands of games through a sale and they're just sitting there?
Right.
Like they could be replayable or something, but it's almost just like it's not even about. I think you're breaking out there for me. I think you're trying to imitate and do an impression of something, or about.
That's just my nerd voice. That's how I hear all our comments. Daniel Gross said, "I can't say that I've played a lot of these one-time play games, but I am curious." This kind of goes back to what I said earlier. We read the same book multiple times. We watch the same movies multiple times. Why is it so hard to think we can pick a one-time play game multiple times? Yes, sometimes it's multiple years between views, but why can't it be multiple years between plays? Great games stand the test of time. I think one-time play games might have the same effect. So he's saying in terms of games that you don't have to like actually dispose of or rip up the pieces or anything, like a story-based game, why not just go back to it?
And in fact, I did that with Time Stories. And it was actually a lot of fun because even though I knew the twists, I played with a group that didn't. And I was just there sort of to be like the resource to help them out. And it was still pretty fun. As long as it's a good story, some of those Time Stories chapters probably wouldn't love to replay. But Sherlock Holmes, I have a lot of fun with. Yeah, Mythos Tales, I think, is it's rough, but I still think overall a great story.
I used to go back and play through like the Phoenix Wright games every few years, and it's or like again with any movie, yeah, of course you rewatch.
Oh yeah, no,
them.
I think I know I do, and I assume a lot of people have like you should have like a TV show. I know a lot of people joke about Friends being their show for this that you just sort of always have on rewatch and watch like the seventh time in a row. Right. So I don't think it's impossible. It's definitely Legacy is the one that makes it complicated.
Yeah, I mean,
but I think plenty of the other ones, especially. There's all the ones I mentioned, like also, Portal's Detective, Modern Crime, where even though the mystery, sometimes it's just fun.
Yeah.
Especially if you put, you might forget some of those. I think actually it was Mythos Tales we didn't play like for a year or two, and then we were playing with someone like, did we do this mission? We're halfway through and we're like, I think I remember this.
That is part of it. It does have to be a game that I think video games and movies are a little different because. With some board games, if you do have to wait longer, because if I just played the Sherlock Holmes case yesterday, then I'm like, well, I know the answer. That isn't as fun as
No, you're absolutely right, and that's why I think the way I did with Time Stories would be the best way. Like if you knew the stuff, but if you sat at a full table with a bunch of other people, you're sort of like you're sort of just sitting there. It's sort of like when you put on your favorite movie with a friends and you're just waiting for that scene.
Right. It's more fun to introduce it to someone. Yeah.
And I think that, so it's not one and done does not mean throw out.
Davin Thompson said, as much as some legacy games are playable in standalone mode once complete, like Alex wants to see more of, I don't think I've ever played one of those games after having completed the initial campaigns. That being said, I also played 12 to 14 games in the campaign itself. For a game that cost me about 10% more than most standalone games, I've played at least 300% more sessions of my legacy games than any standalone games in my collection. Hey, that's what I said. You really do need to put the hobby into perspective sometimes and realize that a lot of those repeat playable games you buy are just not hitting the table as much as you think. Yet some people are happy enough to spend $100 on something they'll play 3 times, but won't spend $120 on something you'll play 12 times.
Well, I mean, it's pretty much what you said before.
Yeah.
I think part of it is
Forgot this comment was in here.
the mental state of being like when you have let's say a legacy, like you said, the 120 versus 100. You know you can always come back to that 100, so you never feel guilty. You're like you're never gonna lose your position. But this one, you're like, oh, we haven't unlocked everything, and that's the other thing that can be annoying sometimes. Like you just want to play with all the stuff. Yeah. So I mean, it depends on some legacy games. You don't think about that, and I think that's actually a pretty good thing. Some games, you're waiting to get beyond the basic mechanics. So that's the other big challenge. It's all really, I think, just more about how you look at it. Like it's more of all in our mind than it is, I think, an actual issue.
Yeah.
Just how you feel about it, and also how well you can play these games. Because I mean, if you can get it, if you are hitting that game, 10 to 12 times, and it's not a legacy game, good on you. But I think, as we've been saying, sometimes some of those games only hit like twice, maybe 3 times.
Let's see what people in the chat have to say about this. Hexy Beast says, I think if a game is one and done, its price should reflect its amount of content. I tend to play unlocked games, then give them to family to try out. I mean, those are cheap. Those are cheap. Robin says, in New Zealand, there are a ton of people that exchange games like Exit and such. Just one for one, no monetary exchange. Yeah, that's cool if you're part of I'm sure on Board Game Geek and Reddit and places, they have like groups where you can just swap them.
I'm just more impressed because Exit tends to be the kind of game that, I mean, you don't have to, but usually you
maybe
want to
Exit's harder.
pieces.
Yeah. Let's see. Yes, we agree about things, and I still have the mouse cursor on your nose sometimes, so I'm trying to move it out. And then a lot of people are just talking to each other, so I'm glad they're having their own conversations in the chat. But I don't think I need to read them for us. But there's a lot of more thoughts in there. Check that chat if you got a chance. You're watching this after the fact. See how
or
people feel.
afterwards, you can check the chat on our Discord channel. That was an intentional plug.
Ugh, I'm moving right past that. Final thing, we had a discussion about board game ratings, and specifically meaning number ratings and how valuable they are, and how they can be utilized in our videos and in general in other people's videos. And people had some real interesting comments about that. Some constructive criticism, some suggestions, just some thoughts in general. Skilled Seffing, said, being relatively new to the hobby, I've found numerical ratings and top 10s very useful in picking games. It provides a certain concreteness, although slightly illusory. As I become more game savvy, though, I find pros and cons reviews, such as yours, more valuable. I think having a baseline of knowledge, though, was required. So I guess it's interesting. They're saying, like, when you're newer to the hobby, you don't really know what makes a good game or not. That number is more helpful because you can apply that to something. You're like, oh, well, I know a 9 out of 10 means it's good. Whereas us saying, there was a little too much, take that, might not mean anything.
Right. Well, not only that, usually for our pros and cons, they really rely on the reviewer. So, for example, if we do a social deduction game and you hear me being a little negative about it, odds are, if you know me, it's not because I think the game is terrible. I mean, it could be, I don't know. But it might just be not my kind of game. So that's the other thing, too, of like the numbers, especially when it's like Board Game Geek, a aggregate site. That's the word I was looking for. It's like, okay, so on average, it's an 8 out of 10 kind of thing. But like hearing one of our opinions, you have to take that into account first and know, like, okay, I know what Will likes. I know what Jonathan likes.
Yeah, and knowing what you like, too.
Right, of course.
Yeah, knowing your own taste. Like, if you've never played a social deduction game, how do you know what anyone thinks about it and how it's relevant? Refresh Damon said, I personally use a blank out of 10 scale for rating things because it helps me consider what class or league the game is in. For me, anything above 6 or above is a game I'd like to some extent and would play. Although only at a 7 is it a game I would personally suggest playing. I might even still play a 5 with the right group. 4 and below are various degrees of bad. I think this is a great example of why, like, just everybody sees these numbers as different. It's hard to differentiate. Says one.
Not even we were talking about Rotten Tomatoes because I remember I was saying some things and you're like, really? That's how you feel? Like that,
right?
And I feel like that's a bit more concrete with how people feel.
Yeah, I don't even know about that. Anyway, Refresh Damon says, one thing I don't care to do at all that people love to do in board games is the top X list. I just think there are too many loose variables for me to pit 2 or 10 games against each other and be able to definitively say this thing is better than this other thing if they're in the top league of my games. If you get a 10 out of 10, congrats, I love you. I'm not going to pick my favorites among you. I still enjoy watching the videos, mostly to see everything that made it up, but I honestly don't care what order they're in. I think you agree with that. I know you are a proponent of the tiered rankings.
I think that's usually a little bit fair. Usually because sometimes I'd rather play this game over this one, but they're still both good picks. And I feel like also one of the reasons I also like the tier system is, let's say I did a top 10 worker placement, and someone goes, "Why didn't you put Viviculture on there?" I'm like, because I haven't played it. And that would change the list. A tier list doesn't change someone's tier usually. Like maybe it might knock someone down because like, oh, it just did that. It just does what that game's so much better.
Is there an implication with a tier though? I'm thinking about it in my head that it's conclusive or inclusive of everything. Like typically if you see a tier ranking of just all I can think of. First thing I think of is Smash Brothers characters. You're not gonna like leave a character out. You know what I mean? Whereas with there's so many board games that maybe it's harder to do because if you don't have something on your list, it's like, well, why isn't that in S rank? As opposed to with top 10, it's like, oh, that could have been like just their number 11 or whatever.
I guess the difference is when like going back to Viviculture, if it's not in the top 10, you're like, that guy's crazy. That should be in his top 10. If it's not shown on the tier list, you can be like, oh, he didn't play it. Because if it's not there, I guess. It has to be. It's not. It doesn't exist to him yet in some reason. And I don't see because it shows everything.
So maybe it's for some reason in my head. I feel like I usually think of them as being.
I see where you're coming from, and also like you said, that could also be part of it. You could see it as it's his 11 or bottom. I just when it comes to something that so obviously should be in the top 10 of something, people are like, why is it not there? Why does he hate this game? Right. When if it's on the tier list, as you said, because it's already inclusive, it's like. It doesn't make sense. It's not like he has I hate this game so much it's not here. Right. Or I love this game so much it doesn't deserve to be with these plebs kind of thing.
Brian Andrews said, I find numbers useful for extremes, e.g. if there's a really lousy game or something that is very good. It can sometimes be a bit difficult judging a game when it's an IP I really like, so a simple score if it's really dire can help. That said, there's an element of fashionable games, especially on BGG, which is when I prefer to avoid the numbers. So, they have their uses.
Yeah. Well, I think that's the idea of, and this is one of those interesting challenges of knowing the reviewer. It's a lot This is when it's a lot easier to go, these are things Will likes. These are things Jonathan likes. Those are two people. There is a certain audience that visit Board Game Geek, and trying to suss out what they like, and there are trends that they're going to follow. I don't know how many of those people are the same people whose main place to purchase board games is Target and Walmart. And I think that's so for them, some of those games might be higher. Like if you tend to buy more like you're not going to find the most complicated games at Target. Let's be honest. You're not going to find Twilight
Jaws
Imperium.
Is a lion. Oh wait.
Well, they're getting better, but I think they're going to rate probably Exploding Kittens higher than than the average audience of Burger Geek, and that's not like a bad or terrible thing. It's just certain audiences and that's the other thing with ratings too. I don't know. I think we're a little bit better with board games, not too much, but we tend to see more 10s and 1s. I don't know if you ever looked like an Amazon review.
Never have.
You usually get the more polarizing people who want to vote to say like this is amazing or this is terrible.
Right. Well, let's bring it back to video reviews and actual critics as opposed to just the layman. Forrest Dunton really likes numbers. Said, if there isn't a clear rating system of some type, I find the review useless. It's irrelevant whether I agree with the reviewer or not, just the fact that there isn't a definitive conclusion. This is some harsh criticism, but I'm going to read it. So I get much more use out of Dice Tower or Shut Up and Sit Down reviews than I do from Roll for Crit. So that's his 2 cents. He likes a firm. This is how it is. On the other hand, we have a comment here from Oblong who says, It's always good to refine and improve, but I think your current crits and misses is great. People's tastes are so varied and scores pigeonhole your reviews. People will compare prior scores to new ones, and as you mentioned, your own numbers would evolve for the same game. I do think you could expand your expansion ratings to something similar for core games. And he gives some examples of like, if it's a keeper, we'll play it if a friend owns, sell it. Just off the cuff there, but you could probably refine it to a few categories to communicate your plans for the game in the future. And says maybe a name for your top category will get a roll for crit hit on a box cover someday.
We're working on that.
We're thinking about that. And Edmund England says, great discussions. I believe people like numbers and often think that they say something, but in ratings it does not say so much. So I think your system is so much better. So there's two camps. Some people really like the numbers. Some people don't care about numbers at all and think they're actually hurtful. But I'm definitely more in that camp. I tend to like our system, but I am hearing a voice from the people that maybe they want us to be more, which I feel like we do, but maybe it's not as concrete as it is in my head.
No, they want something that's like the expansion to pop up on screen, like.
Maybe, or
I know Dice Tower does the thing like it's good, it's silver, like.
Or at the very least, just being, if even not an official like a stamp, but just being like, yes, I love this game and you should buy it, or no, you shouldn't buy this game. I don't think. I try to be very fair about it and be like, buy this if this.
The comment was the idea of like one of the ratings is, I don't want to spend money on it. I want my friend to spend money on it.
Yeah. Hey, that's a category. It's like, yeah, if my friend has it, I'll play it, but I'm not going to go out of my way. People in the chat, what do you got for us? We've got a lot of comments. Let's see. The Hexy Beast says, I think it's generally tricky as a content creator to get a lot of plays out of the games I would like to, because they usually end up shelved so I can play the game I'm working on for my next video. Yeah, that's what happens to us, especially being in quarantine. That makes it 10 times harder. Let's see. Robin says, as a player, we don't buy games weekly. We buy probably 10 to 20, so replayability is key as we log in over 600 games per year. So there's another example of non-reviewers who play tons of games all the time. Robin also says, as on regards game ratings, objective pros and cons that you guys do are great. I don't know if ours are always so objective, but we try. It helps us understand what the game is really about. Personal opinions are a bit harder to use. We do the same on our work travel channel. And I also love top 10s within categories like deck builders, because it gives 3 to 4 options to pick from, gives you a lot of context, seeing the same person discussing many games. But for game ratings, ultimately, you've got to get to know a reviewer to know what works for you. I think these are echoing a lot of the things that we've said. And Sild Seffing, who's... I hesitated because I don't know if I'm saying their name right. Also said, they had a comment, said they use and appreciate both styles, truly. Refresh Damon likes rating games numerically for themselves mostly, but they do think it's important if you're going to rate things numerically publicly to explain what the numbers mean. And Scott says, I want a number I can argue with you about. Sometimes that's what it maybe comes down to.
All right, here's a number for you, Scott. You're number 1.
Oh, okay. That went a different direction than I thought it was going to go. I got a number for you.
Keep it positive.
It's my phone number. Let's hang out. So there's a lot of different directions it can go, and I think it's, the bottom line is all these places exist. Board Game Geek exists. Dice Tower exists. We exist. You don't need to just pick one. That's what's great about the internet, is if you're not sure what to buy, you can choose different sources, and different people have their own different metrics they like.
Right. I think the challenges come sometimes.
Everything.
There's people who are just like, I saw this person give it a 4. That is the universal truth now. And then, of course, when they come across someone else who says, no, it was given an 8 here.
Right.
And it can mean completely different things. And that's really the challenge. I think it's just everyone to understand how the scale can be completely different. The 4 could be out of a 4 out of 5. The 8 could be an 8 out of 100. Who knows? Just
who knows?
Be ready to know that you may have to make adjustments.
Yeah. Well, that's it for our Meeple Gallery. We went through pretty much a lot of the big comments from the past month. If we left you out, I'm sorry. You're just going to have to comment even harder for next time. But we appreciate you if you were one of those commenters or if you were in the chat watching us today. And we'll try to make it so it's not 2 months before we do our next one of these. We are still working on more stuff, like coming out with new streams in the future for not just viewer comments, but all kinds of stuff, more gameplay, more board game battles, whatever else your heart's desire. And maybe more stuff like people are talking about, like more top 10s and more reviews and all the things we always do all the time. And some big reviews for some big games that people are very much anticipating coming up in the next few weeks. So you're going to want to stay tuned, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already.
Yeah, I can see them right over the camera there, just taunting me.
Oh, man. They might rhyme with schmendulum. I don't know. And we, of course, will right now take this opportunity to thank our patrons.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody who is supporting us at patreon.com/rollforcrit. They're all our good buddies. And you can do that for just $1 a month. $5 if you want to be in our credits card here, like all these other fun patrons. Or you can follow us online, Roll for Crit, on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all these great places that are really fun to go. So check us out there. And thanks everybody for watching. Any final words?
Yeah, I mean, even if we're still happy that you're watching, regardless whether you're a patron or not. And if you have any comments about the stuff we make, just let us know, and we'll either read them or maybe even add your suggestions to try to improve. There's always room to grow.
Yeah. Thanks for that. And I'll be the one saying, no, we're good as it is. Don't listen to that guy. Thanks again, everybody in the chat. And Robin saying he mentions us in their game group regularly, all the way in New Zealand.
Thank you.
Which, man,
we wish we were with
we
you.
really wish we were there. You guys really are doing it up right. Everybody else, Scott, Refresh Damon, Hoser 40K, everybody who joined us. Thanks again. All right. See you guys. Bye. It's Roll for Crit signing off. I'm Jonathan.
I'm Will.
Bye.
And see ya.